Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. The blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media, signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger, is now coming at you with the blackest message I've had in a while. Only message blacker than this is when I told you all that Islam was a solution. And I do mean on the condition that you do not look up to anybody lighter than you or any ethnic group lighter than yours for obvious reasons. I'm not talking about what they think is Islam, because they think that Islam is Malcolm X. For you, they think Islam is Malcolm X going on Hajj. You going on Hajj like Malcolm X and learning to love white people. F all that. That's not what you need. And I was never intending that. But see, that message is the blackest message I've had, because it actually is a solution. And if you don't believe me, try it and watch them come after you. Watch God bless you, but his enemies try to come after you. No, there's something else to this, man. This is the second blackest message. This is the dirt on other races, as you see in the title. So I'm going to give y'all what they're really doing, so you can understand. Number one, the Chinese are really not geniuses when it comes to business. Understand that. What they do is they will conduct bribes. They count that as actually somewhat normal. Just don't talk about it, don't publicize it, but it's normal to them. Bribes are normal. Number two, the Chinese don't start off on the same footing as other businesses. They simply don't do it. The Chinese know what a black-owned business in the United States or in the hood has to go through, or what they start with. If they can't start ahead of that business, they won't go into that business. A Chinese person will inevitably go into whatever business in which they can start off ahead. Number three, all Chinese people aren't that good in business either. Oh, they got a lot of failures among the Chinese. I saw it when I was in Kuala Lumpur. I visited my brother-in-law's apartment. He was in a low-cost apartment, and there were a lot of non-Chinese people living there, but there were a lot of Chinese people living there too. Why were they living there? Some would say, yeah, well, they save money. That may be possible. I'm sure that there were those who were doing it to save so that they could put more into a business. But I also want you to understand as well that they would be considered, they would not be looked highly upon by the wealthy Chinese. We see the ones with the money and we think, oh, they're all of this and all of that. No, you go to their country and it's a lot of poverty. And you know it. You understand that when you actually go there. But you think that when they go to America, they just all of a sudden become rich. No, they come to America with something. Or rather go to America with something, because I ain't there with y'all. And now I can't be there until things go back to normal, if they ever do, because of COVID-19. I don't think they will. I may actually be stuck here. And it's better to be stuck here than it is to be stuck over there on that plantation. Because for as much as these wannabe white Arabs who don't really hate black people can be a bother, and as much as I would tell you that they're a little bit too white, mentally speaking, for my taste, they ain't got nothing on that real white man. They can be fixed over time, but you got to start that now, and you got to start it aggressively and early. But that being said, they could be fixed over time. We know that white man over there cannot. He cannot learn. He cannot begin to think differently, and neither can the Indian, especially the one that's Hindu. So that's the dirt on them. I also want you to understand that they will cut corners. And let's take a look. You see, right now, there's a boycott of their business where you are. And for what reason? Because they're associated with COVID-19. They're facing this little bit of racism for less than a quarter of a year at this point. And what the F has been going on? Well, they're crying and moaning and bitching, and a white man's willing to give it to them. And for what reason? Now, that's a handout, right? What does this tell you? This tells you that if we had agreed to one of our usual Negro boycotts, they would have needed less of a handout to get out of this, or to get through it, and they would have gotten that. Because if Master's willing to hand them, $1 billion collectively to keep their businesses afloat because of bias, why wouldn't he be willing to hand them out, $750 million if it had been one of our Negro boycotts? What was the reason for that? It is to uphold white supremacy. This is why they can get reparations for this little taste that they're going through and experiencing. And you and I cannot get reparations for 400 plus years of effing trauma. It ain't just the U.S. that owes us. Oh, no. Portugal owes even us. Spain owes even us. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Because the British, where did they get their stock, so to speak, from? The British would buy from the Spaniards, and the Spaniards in turn had bought from the Portuguese, who were actually setting up shop in Angola and the Congo especially, and to a lesser extent on other coast of Africa. Gentlemen, this is real. This is white supremacy in action. They can get it because they're not you. The Jews can get it because they're not you. That's all it is. The whole point of it is that whites would be the wealthiest, we would be the poorest, and everyone else would be somewhere in between. And when we start saying, you know, I ain't buying from them slant-eyed gooks, which is not really the way we tend to think anyway, but if we start saying that, or we just say I ain't buying from no COVID-19 carriers, we say that, it means that's money in our pockets and less in theirs. And the U.S. knows they need this. So, white folks know that the Chinese need us. It ain't just the Chinese, but it's mostly them. It's funny. Quite funny. Quite hilarious, actually. Now, what I'm saying is that what we used to say was not true. That they just came over here and got government handouts. They got special loans, low interest maybe. They maybe had to file less paperwork, or maybe had programs where less paperwork was accepted in lieu of the greater paperwork that maybe even a white person would have had to file but could have easily done. That may have been the case. Now, the Hmong people were given assistance when they settled in the States. That was true for the Hmong people specifically. That's a different story. But now it's true for the Chinese and for other Asians that, they are getting it. The Chinese and the other Asians now are they're able at this point to get this handout to sustain them. You can't get what you worked for. You can't get what you were supposed to inherit because your ancestor worked for it. So that's part of the dirt. Now, let's talk about the dirt on the Arab. Why is the Arab willing to get ahead? Or why do they get ahead? Well, that's simple. If they are Muslim, because not all Arabs are Muslim, if they are Muslim, they are not supposed to sell alcohol, pork, pornography, cigarettes. The Arab, as you have seen, and the Pakistani as well, even more so than the Arab, is willing to sell everything that the law allows but that God forbids. So the white man says these things are legal when the law says that they're not legal and permissible for people. They sell them. If it was legal to sell their mothers, many of them would start selling their mothers, and they would get financially ahead of those who don't sell their mothers. So again, the wicked ones of them would be the ones to get ahead financially. This is the system that they accept to move into, even though, religiously speaking, they're not supposed to give up what they have to move into, and not only un-Islamic, but anti-Islamic system like the one in which you live. That's the truth of the matter. Now, the marketplace really dictates that you have to sell these things to make the money. The law allows you to sell these things to make the money. They go where the law allows it, knowing that the marketplace is actually what dictates it. The government says you can sell them. The things you cannot sell, of course, are the outlawed narcotics. You can sell alcohol as long as you get a license to sell it. That means they apply for the license because they obey the law of the land. They obey that white man. They do. What they don't do is they don't obey God at any point when that means that they're going to have to lose money for it. They do not obey God when it means losing revenue. And that's a hard test for anybody. But they have shown that they are going to break that rule every time. That's why they get ahead. That's why. So when that Lebanese store owner goes and sends money back home to Lebanon, that's liquor money. The family back in Lebanon, if they know that this is liquor money, are supposed to refuse it. If they don't know, it's not their fault. It's his. The Palestinian, if he's Muslim, same for the Lebanese. If they're Christian, then chances are they're even more white psychologically speaking than the Muslim. but they don't have a prohibition as far as they know. So, they're not supposed to sell pork, but they'll do that too. Let's talk about the Muslims though. The Muslims that ain't black. You'll notice that's what they sell. They're willing to sell things that they're not supposed to. The same thing happened in Malaysia with the Chinese. They would say, oh, the Chinese have business. Of course they have business. They're not Muslim. They'll sell alcohol to the foreign guest. You won't. You're not supposed to serve it. You, the Malay Muslim, are not supposed to serve it, so you won't serve it, so you lose money. You damn sure won't sell it, so you lose money. You need to make the law that that sort of thing is not allowed, so that they can't come into your Muslim land and then start dominating you, because they're not going to respect your rules if they have the upper hand. So don't let them have the upper hand. It's your country. And the state government of Terengganu and the state government of Kelantan, they did make this. They outlawed it. The weekend is Friday to Saturday, and alcohol is not allowed. You cannot sell pork. Pornography is not allowed. They're not playing games with this. They're dead serious. So I have to respect those state governments for it. And I just hope that they can win political power in the other regions. See, Malaysia had to make certain rules for different races in order to protect the integrity of the Malay people, and they still don't have the money. The Chinese got the money, and they're using that for everything they can, but they don't all have money either. See, it's not that everybody Chinese has money, it's that everybody that's got money is Chinese, and they ain't Malay. That's what bothers them. That's what bothers a lot of the Malay people, is that they can't obey the rules of their faith in a Muslim country and still make the same money that the Chinese would make. And that's only because they haven't put that stern Mohammedan smackdown on anybody else and say, look, you can open a business, but you cannot sell the things that are against the laws of the Quran. So if it's prohibited in the Sharia, it's prohibited in our land. You sell that, especially if you sell it to Muslims, we're going to come get you. You can have your own communities, and if you want to administrate them insularly and independently, then we'll leave it to you. But if it goes outside of those communities, and that's how that becomes the means by which you have the upper hand over us, we're going to step in, and we're going to use the law to stop it. Because you're not going to profit, you're not going to get ahead of us because you disobeyed God. That's the dirt on other races. And there's a reason I'm telling you this. It's the same thing with the Indian. The Indian, Hindu and Muslim alike, oh my goodness. Number one, they don't all have that money. Number two, a lot of them owe more money than what we owe. That's another thing. And number three, again, they are willing to sell whatever. They will sell, take your pick, they will sell whatever they're not supposed to sell as Muslims to make that money. They shouldn't sell it, they start selling it. They're not going to give it up. As Muslims or as Hindus. If they're Hindu, hey, look, their gods are white and rich anyway. And ain't no rules about what you can't sell, really, to stop them. So, and not only that, here's another thing. In the states where you are, the Indians that go over there are not the ones that you see on the streets on the side of the road in India. Now, you want to see some debauchery and people being willing to do some low-down things to get by? You'll see it in India before you see it in Bangladesh. Oh, yeah. You think black America's in bad shape? Go check out India. A friend of mine from Bangladesh, but, he's of Bengali origin, but who grew up in the UK, went to visit India on a vacation. And he said he could smell excrement everywhere. Now, they couldn't smell it, but he could. I think that might have been one of the reasons he was able to lose weight. Now, he also went to Malaysia. He didn't have that same complaint. Now, when you go into Africa, most parts of Africa, you're not just going to be walking around smelling excrement everywhere you go. If that was the case, people would have said something. They didn't say anything, because that's not what happens when you go to most parts of it. You want to smell it there, you're going to have to walk into someone's bathroom, indoor or outdoor, village or city. That's where you got to go to smell excrement. Or maybe go to a farm where the animals just drop a load wherever they want to. But that's where you got to go. You're not going to sit up here and just walk through Africa and smell excrement out in the open like you would in India. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, black folks, is because you got to understand that you're not the worst people in the world. You are one of the most disenfranchised in the world. And you don't necessarily have the worst situation in the world, but you got second or third, maybe right now. You have had, collectively speaking, over time, the worst situation in the world if you add up the severity and the time duration. You have had the worst. And yet you have done better than other people who've had less to deal with. Others have been oppressed by the same white man, and they have been less oppressed, either in severity or duration, or both, and yet they have not done as well as what you would have done. And that's real. You can see that hands down. The Koreans, they always resort to sleight of hand when it comes to making money. You think they have money. No, the ones that have money are showcased in front of you. A lot of them don't, whether it's in Korea or in the United States. They don't all have money like that. You think they do? They don't. But I'm going to tell you what they're willing to do for that money. They're willing to, darn it, tell any lie. They'll set up businesses in the area. And when they set these businesses up, sometimes people of other nationalities may open up a business in the same area, and they just simply cooperate to make sure those businesses don't do as well. And it does work in order of complexion. So if an Indian opens up a business near Koreans and a black person opens up a business near Koreans, they will boycott the black business first. And they will resort to things like trying to call the cops around the black business and say, oh, well, you know, behind this place, people are selling drugs or something. Get the cops to show up, scare people away. They'll do stuff like that. Sleight of hand. And then when they're done with the black person, then they start on the Indian. That's how they do it. And they will leave no business left alone except for their own. Now, they may do this even if a Japanese person or a Vietnamese, or especially if a Vietnamese or some other Southeast tropical Asian were to set up business near them, especially if that Southeast tropical Asian is not against black people. White supremacy is ingrained. That's how they do it. Things you would not do, they will, because they're unethical and they're wrong. And it's one of the reasons why they seem to always have more. And another thing too, they're actually willing, as much as we stunt and maybe even go in debt to stunt, much as we do dumb things like spend rent money on a grill so we can stunt at the club trying to impress some woman, as much as we may do that, they will go into massive debt to put up an image, to fool each other with it and to fool you. That's what'll happen. One of the reasons why they don't mind their kids marrying somebody white as much as they mind their kids marrying you is because they think that white folks tend to have more money, which is true. They think they're going to get that money and it's going to help them pay off these debts. Because a lot of them do owe money to put up this image, to project this image, and you and I fell for it. That was our mistake. There's more. There's more to it than this too. Let me give you some dirt on I'll give you dirt. I don't think you're going to like this very much, but I'm going to give you dirt on I'm going to give you dirt on white folks mostly. Some dirt you know, some dirt you don't. They specialize in gaslighting. That is their specialty. They don't even know they're doing it half the time. Now, their wealth, as we know, and I'm talking about the Western European, not the Eastern. Their wealth, as we already know, is based on them taking it from others by force generations ago, centuries ago, continuing to do it up until the last century in the form of colonization. And then they would wisely invest, but they would only wisely invest if it was something they stole from others. They did not wisely invest anything of their own, except one thing. They invested their intellect into the militarization of gunpowder, and subsequently into the development of other weapons from that. Gunpowder and electronics, and the use of explosives. These are the main things in which they would invest their intellect. Now, this comes easy to them. I know this because this is one of the instincts that I inherited from them. I do have some of their blood, and I'm pretty sure that I inherited this instinct from them, because most of the black folks I know don't have an instinct to start pondering how to militarize and weaponize volatile substances. They do. Most of us want to defend ourselves. They have an instinct to weaponize what they can, even when they don't hate you. They still have an instinct to simply weaponize what they can weaponize because, well, it could be a weapon. It can help them dominate their environment, because they do not see nature as being neutral, let alone friendly. They see nature as being hostile. And I couldn't understand why. I don't know why Eastern Europeans are generally more peaceful than the Westerners. I'm not really sure what the reason is. I do know that the Westerners are where the hostility is. They have that hostility. They will do hostile things, even if you don't provoke them, even if they don't, even if they're not required to, even if it's not an issue of safety. They're going to be difficult on other people. I can't explain the difference between them, but there is one. There's something that you can see in them from childhood, and I've also seen this in the non-black Arab. In childhood, you'll see a diversity of morality and characters between them. You're going to see the Western European Caucasian kid that is a straight narcissist. I mean, this kid, he thinks about himself only. He cannot think about other people, and he has to do bad things. You know, that kid that he has to do it. If you're in a classroom and they're supposed to be working on something quietly, and this is when they have recess, he's supposed to be working on something quietly. Guess what? He can't do it. There's that one kid, maybe two, he has to take paper and crumple it up just to make noise, because he can't stand quiet and peace. He just can't do it. So what does he do? Well, he breaks every rule. He hits everybody else that's smaller than him. He looks you in the face and says, I didn't do it. You just don't like me. That's it. Always gaslighting from a young age. You see those kinds of kids. Usually, they're not our kids. Now, you have other white kids in these environments, if you've ever taught any of them, and you'll see that others of them are all over the spectrum. You got the really good ones. You have the ones that are somewhere in between, but they get restless at times and they cause a little trouble, which is normal. The problem is that what you'll see with white kids is that the others will not unite against the one that causes the trouble. Not especially when they're young, like kindergarten, let's say. They don't do that. They kind of rally around and look up to them, want to appease that kid. We have to grow into that, because when we're young, it's like, if you're not that kid that acts a goddamn fool, then the others will look at you and say, I ain't playing with that kid. No, we ain't playing with you. You don't know how to act. Later on, after socialization, and the socialization comes early, but there is a socialization process. And we can all remember this process in which we started to learn to look up to, or we at least learned that many of us would look up to the disruptive ones and look down on the ones that could cooperate and get the job and get the work done. We can all, if we think about it, we can all remember a time like that. At this age, I didn't do this, that, and the other. At that age, I learned to do this, that, and the other. Or I learned that people will do this, that, and the other. That's the difference. We're not the same. Now, because they don't stay united against, this bottom line is that there are lines that they're willing to cross that many of us are not. I mean, even Taz said of Air and Sea, I think was the white guy's name. Even Taz said to him, yeah, you know, it is throwing somebody to the wolves when they debate me, but I'm not going to do it under false pretenses. What did y'all say? Even Taz had that decency. Even he had it. I got to hand that to him. Wish he'd have it with other black folks, but it's too late for that now. So that being said, this is the dirt on them. At the end of the day, it comes down to this. They're willing to do things that are unethical that, generally speaking, we ain't willing to do. And when we're willing to do the same things that are unethical, they are all on code about making sure that we pay the price. that we suffer a negative consequence for it. That's the other thing too. See, we're not on code about making sure everybody else catches it. We're on code about making sure that we don't go easy on each other. And we're on code about making sure that anything incidental like ear size and height and shade and weight are reasons to clown each other from a young age into old age, beyond jokes. I'm not talking about jokes, I'm talking beyond that. We make sure of that. Now, that's just something that we would consider unrealistic to change. It is considered to be a necessary part of just the fabric of space and time itself, of reality. It has to be that way with us. But there are certain things that we're not willing to do, especially just to get ahead for money. We do have a concept of blood money, or bad money. And other groups are losing it. They have a concept, they just don't fivaguck. We still fivaguck. No, I didn't curse just now. And this is really why it is that it seems that they're all so much better off than we are. No, they're willing to do things that we're not willing to do for a few extra coins. They're willing to compromise a morality we're not willing to compromise for some extra coins. This is why. Simply put, I guess what I'm saying is that they have more because they're not us. Assalamu alaikum. That's why. No. I mean, they have more because the system is set up to allow them to have more as long as they're not us. And they have more because they're not who we are as well. And this world is like that. This world is a testing ground for people's morality. This is not the world where you get the rewards for being the right person. This is the world where you get tested so that you determine whether you're going to be the right person or not. But they made their minds up. They have to have it all right now, in this world, in this life, even at the expense of the day that we wake up and have to stand in front of He who created us. So they've got their mindset made. They got their mindset pretty much catered to allow them to get ahead. That's it. That's why they got what they got and we don't have what we have. The world is a testing ground, and right now, when you are a person who has a conscience, even if it's just enough of a conscience to not worship a false god, if you're that person, you're going to catch it. You're going to lose out on, resources and benefits and all that stuff, because that's who the hell these other folks are. They went through the same test, believe you me. China simply said, we're not going to allow opium. Even when a lot of people became addicted, the stance of the Chinese government and society was that they were not going to legitimize opium like it was okay, because it was drug abuse. The emperor, when he passed away, was found to have been in possession of opium, but he was not going to say that it was okay. Guess what? The British fought those opium wars against them. And if I'm not mistaken, the Chinese were the first to coin the phrase white devil. You see, there was a time when the Chinese went through it as well. What do they have to do to get out of that? They had to compromise their morality in the form of siding with white against black. This goes beyond their little preference for white women or white skin in women. It goes beyond that. They had to be willing to side with white against black back in the 50s and 60s for the U.S. to stop messing with them. Now, we're born with the same business sense, people. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to this. If one person from every racial background begins to succeed in the vicinity or in the context of white folks, the question is going to be, against whom are they going to go with the most priority? Right now, that's us. That's the answer. And that explains why we tend to fall behind. That explains why we don't necessarily cultivate a business sense from a young age. It doesn't work. You can't cultivate a business sense when your own people are psychologically programmed, consciously and subconsciously, to not support your business, but rather to undermine it, trying to get everything for free that you had to purchase with money. Why would you sit up and talk about cultivate a sense of business? You see, it's not an accident that black-owned businesses that succeed the most are the ones that everybody does not know are black-owned. There's a reason for that. That's really the secret to making a black-owned business work. Don't let people know it's black owned. Pretend you're the manager. You know, boss master gave me opportunity. That's how you do it. And even then, you can't bring in other black folks just because they're your boys. You got to bring in black folks that have a sense of business as well, a sense of what to do and what not to do. That's the other thing you got to do. My homeboy, whose nickname is Black Time, yeah, that's his nickname. Black Time opened up a store in our hometown. Now, he was selling naughty gifts, but the point is that he opened up a business, and he actually wasn't selling anything pornographic in the store. It was more like humorous stuff, like T-shirts that would say things on them like "They don't talk, stop staring," stuff like that. He sold these things. So, all right, he sold these things. He actually didn't get undermined because black folk or white folks came in boycotting him or looking for a hookup. He was undermined because he brought in a friend, and this friend, who by the way was not ADOS, he was Bahamian and Nigerian. I know, right? A U.S. citizen, but he was Bahamian and Nigerian in his origin. For those of you who think that it's only black Americans that suck at business, no. People who are disenfranchised suck at business. This guy here was using the business credit card to eat. Not to feed potential clients or potential business partners, but to eat. Just having feasts at the store, not necessarily even as promotional items. A bunch of food items showed up on the expense report. That put the business under. So, believe you me, if we only face the same opposition as everyone else faces, we would do as well as they do, and then better. Therein lies the truth, and this is the real dirt on other races. So stop acting like we're the worst. I should never hear any of us say this again. And if you hit the share button, then there will come a day when we won't hear anybody say this ever again. Thank you for listening for 32 minutes plus. Blackest of the black, signing black out, assalamu alaikum, and black male power just because they don't like it.